Welcome back for another installment of Fellowship of the Rink, brought to you by our incredible local friends in Waggle Golf, 9 Mile Brewing, and Barrel Theory Beer Company. With me, as always, Joe Smith of The Athletic, bringing you all the insider info on your Minnesota Wild and Gopher hockey. And I am back from upper body injury. Went from day to day to week, almost hit month to month, but we're good, kind of.
I'm sure you were sorely missed, probably more so at home than you were here, but you're missed somewhere.
I mean, there were definitely times where my wife wasn't upset that I couldn't talk, but others where it was very inconvenient.
Yeah.
So
yeah.
We power through, but it's funny, like we go out and we're both at the Frozen Four and just cannot find a way to get together and meet up with just all the different directions we're going. But I mean, pretty exciting hockey. What was everything like though from your end, just covering Denver a little bit more up close and personal?
Yeah, no, it was fun. Like my third straight Frozen Four doing this for The Athletic. And this time was a little bit different. I usually try to embed with a team each time, and it's hard to kind of pick that team months in advance, right? You don't have an idea what that might be like. And, Minnesota got lucky a couple of years ago with, Faber and Nyes and Cooley being a big storyline. And, last year BU, and they got there again this year. Kind of showing the blue blood program getting back to its roots. So the story still worked. And this year working with, David Carle and the Denver staff, which has been great to us at the podcast. We've gotten Zeev and Lorenz on here, and they've been great. And it just, they're just an interesting program to me because they're the top of college hockey, right? 10 national titles. Western Michigan won the title and they deserved it this year. Of course, they're the champions right now. I'm saying as far as history, in the last 10 years, like they're the standard right now. And it's kind of like, how do they do it? Like they're not a football school. They don't have kind of the money other people do. They don't do NIL. Like how do they kind of get these guys and win? And so that was my idea of pitching the story to them. And so it wasn't quite a full embed as other stories I've done as far as in every meeting or every ping pong thing or whatever, but I got a feel for kind of how the program works and how they're different. And that story is coming out this week as well. And as people will point out, the three teams I followed closely all ended up losing before the title game or losing in the title game, which clearly two of them were overtime, one double overtime, like not a writer's fault. But yeah, so it's a fun experience to learn more about these teams and coaching staffs. And I always love the process and development, and David Carle's an NHL coach in waiting, and kind of his future is very, prescient around the NHL. Zeev Buium, I had to spend a lot of time with him, around him this week, last week in St. Louis, and wrote a story for The Athletic that ran Monday, kind of behind the scenes of his final days in college and what that is like, being a heartbeat of a program, and all of a sudden, days later, not making your debut, which he didn't make his debut, but he became an NHL player, right? So it was fun, and I got sick halfway through, which sucked. But college hockey is great. I think it's a wonderful sport to cover, and like I said, a lot of these guys that you cover in the Frozen Four, Celebrini, Lane Hudson, like all the Nyes, Faber, like these guys are NHL impact players pretty quickly after college, which is why it's fun to see them in their last college days.
For sure. And a little bit more college talk here before we bring Mike Russo on to talk a little bit more in depth on everything that just happened with the Minnesota Wild. But on that, Joe, a guy that you and Russo had speculated for a little while might sign with the Wild as a free agent after he wrapped up a season with a title, of course, Tim Washi, did the rookie lap that we thought Zeev Buium might be doing last night. And I gotta say, I wonder what's going through his head as he's sitting there on the bench and the rink is erupting. He's like, did I make the right choice?
I'm sure when he goes back to his pad and in the beach in Newport or whatever, and gets to rip up his contract after this year's over and sign a new one, or wherever he wants to sign it with, or whatever, or he gets traded or something. I think I don't blame Tim at all. Like he had multiple offers, and a few of them were offers for teams that were like, hey, you can play in an NHL game this week, right? The Ducks were one of them. The Wild were not one of them. That way the Wild were offering a similar like 1-year deal type thing, but they couldn't promise Zeev Buium a game on Tuesday. They weren't going to promise Tim Washi, who I don't know if he played very much at all last night. Much as I loved him as a player, I think he would have been a great fit for the Wild and an organization going forward. They pursued him and they gave it a shot. But yeah, like that had to be just a fun thing of like, all of a sudden making his rookie lap in the Xcel Energy Center, and then the whole thing of watching this whole thing transpire too. But those guys, like watching him in Western Michigan, like that guy's going to be a good fourth line center in the NHL, which are very valuable players, which I think the Wild know that full well. Guys who can win faceoffs, guys who are big and physical, like up the middle, like, they can keep you in the NHL for a long time. So good to be around him. And I asked him, like, what kind of fit are you looking for? He goes, anybody needs a forward, man. Anybody needs a forward, I'm up for him. Like, so he picked the Ducks and that worked out.
Loyal SodaPod listeners, if you're in the South Metro or just need to explore some new breweries, head to Bloomington's first and only tap room, 9 Mile Brewing. Some of my favorite beers on tap right now are Current Obsession, 9 Mile's flagship New England IPA, and Harness the Dark, their Imperial Rye Porter aged in J. Carver rye whiskey barrels, brewed in collaboration with J. Carver for their 3rd anniversary party just this last month. 9 Mile will be hosting bingo every Thursday with 2 blackout games starting at $500 and one progressing up to as much as $1,000.
And speaking of Zeev, like, this is your first game as an NHL player or part of an NHL team, and you're in the press box and you're watching this, you're like, probably be like, holy crap, right? Mm-hmm. Like, this is your first taste of like, I'm part of this team, and then this happens. They make the playoffs, and then the Fleury thing, and then you go in the locker room, and then Fleury gets the water bottle bath and like the speech. Like, that has to be a pretty cool, like, welcome to NHL moment for Zeev Buium, right? Regardless if he played or not.
Right. But like, just the way Zeev is wired, like, he is up there just like shaking. He's like, get me out there. Oh my God, I need this so bad.
Well, I think a lot of fans were like the same way when it was a 5-4 power play and did nothing in 2 straight ones. You're like, Zeev does that zone entry pretty well right there. But, that's for another story and another day.
Yeah. And I mean, on top of just, you and Russo giving fans no warning whatsoever that Zeev might not play. I mean, people
last month or so, people like they were getting mad at us for being like, oh, come on, he's going to play over John Merrill, right? Or he's going to play over this guy, right? I'm like, no, you got to read the room. You got to see what they've been doing, see where the situation is. Like, if they're in the playoffs, yes, Zeev will play. If they're not, if you're a head coach in the National Hockey League and you have a guy who has not even practiced with your team yet, who's coming off this, like, yes, do I think Zeev Buium has a higher ceiling than John Merrill? I do. But do I think that John Merrill has more trust from John Hines right now? I do, just because of their familiarity, and he's seen him through the battles, all that stuff. So, like we say, I think we'll have the Russo interview coming up soon here, but I do think Zeev will play in this first round series with Vegas. It may not be game 1, but clearly it had to be such a crazy experience for him to kind of have his first NHL experience, albeit in the press box, watching everybody else do it.
And coming off the heels of 51 minutes and 41 seconds in the Frozen Four semifinals, I believe in regulation he was like around 38 minutes. Like, what? How?
He didn't look tired either. He didn't look tired at all. Like, and then he got beat up too. Like that one hit he avoided behind the boards, almost he spun out of, and I thought of like, this guy didn't look good. And he got a couple turnovers to the blue line after that, right, that led to breakaways. So it wasn't a perfect, clean game, but he played almost a full game, like 51 minutes. So there were moments where he had some turnovers, but there were moments where that zone entry on the game-tying goal, that was a huge moment, and that was all him. And the play in overtime where he almost came across the middle and got tripped up again, like, I don't know. love his confidence. I love his talent, and I've been around his team and see how much they appreciate him and know how much went to that program. And I think the players in the Wild are already kind of smiling and seeing like his person. He's like Faber came in as a pro, right? But Faber's more of a quiet guy or personality. Like he came as a pro. Zeev is one of those guys who isn't afraid to like mix it up or smile or whatever right away. So like I think, and I think Faber is really a defenseman. I'm not saying Zeev is better than Faber or whatever, but I think that their personalities was just like Middleton told me, is like, yeah, like Zeev's not afraid to just be part of the conversation right away. Like just step in and be like,
yeah.
And he likes that. Like he likes that confidence in a kid to do it. So we'll see how that plays out.
And I mean, Zeev is basically as much of a kid as Fleury is, right? Like that,
19,
it's just like the same
40.
kind of like happy, bubbly, like not like reserved or anything. I don't know. It's definitely not a bad mix to throw in. You hit on it earlier. I want to know, David Carle, Mr. Champion now, Coach Ferschweiler. Do you think both either sign NHL deals this summer? Like, where would you handicap it? Who do you think is more likely, and do you think both do or neither do?
I think that most likely one of them, probably more than one versus both of them. I think, Ferschweiler is going to probably be interviewed by the Flyers. I think he's a former line mate with Keith Jones, and obviously he has NHL experience as assistant coach with the Red Wings. Again, he's at his alma mater, just like David Carle, right? And they're building a new arena for, they're doing like he has a program.
They are putting big money into that arena. I think I can't remember who he was on with. It might have been Pat McAfee's show.
Yeah,
they're like, so what? It's like a $300 million project. He's like, oh no, it's up to 500 million now. Yeah, just give me whatever I want. So it's like,
well, it's a multi-use thing too. It's not just for them, but yes, it's a big deal. And so like you have these two guys that are part of their own program that they were part of. I know, Carl didn't play for them, but he was supposed to be played for Denver. But so it's going to take a lot, I think, for these guys to leave in the right situation. They think they can be pretty picky, and so David Carle, like, I think he can be a great NHL coach. I just think that he's in a position now where he's paid well. He lives in a great area. He is standard among programs in college hockey.
Yeah,
I wouldn't go for the New York Rangers job right now. I wouldn't be like jumping over the fence to go to like the Flyers, or like the Blackhawks could make a push for him, and that makes sense for them to go after David Carle. Like he wants to win, and he wants to be in a position to win long term. And so does that young talent enough give them a promise to be like, okay, well, in this Central Division or in this Western Conference, I can build these 22-year-olds into this? Like, it's a good question. It's a good question to have, but I think maybe one of them might go if maybe, and there's a chance both of them might not go. So that's my thought.
Yeah, and for me, it's a weird double-edged sword too, because like both of them are the most secure coaches in college hockey. Like they could be there for the next 10 years easily if they so choose, but their stock has never been higher for both of them. And I wonder, like, how much does the CHL inclusion come August 15th impact all of this? Like, the game's changed. It's kind of like there's a lot of guys in college football who are like completely off their rocker now because recruiting and NIL has just completely changed how you bring players in. Now there's going to be teams like, we're going to see a ton of Boston and Michigan adding these like top tier CHL talents. Does that scare Ferschweiler or Carle at all? Kind of shaking up how their programs have been built.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's opened up. Even least I've talked to David Carle about this. He's opened up them to the conversation about, okay, maybe we have to be open-minded towards this going forward. I get why they wouldn't want to do it or lean on it because it's a slippery slope. Like, how far do you go? Like, it has to be sustainable, right? Like, if you're going to start throwing this much money, and I've heard like 6 figures for some of these guys in the CHL, like, you got to be careful what you're doing and what president you send and how that goes forward and how much money you have, right? Maybe Penn State has that money because Terry Pegula is gazillionaire, right? And he helps fund their program. Michigan's and those FBS schools and ones that have those extra revenue can do that, but like you have to be sustainable over time. And so if this thing, like, not that it's college football in Tennessee or whatever like that, but if kids start demanding more and wanting this, like you're basically going to be an NHL franchise at that point. So
yeah, and I'm wondering, like, over the next year or two, how many schools do you think are going to have like a true GM for their team? It's going to happen for some.
I mean, I think, does Minnesota have a GM? I know Dakota just named her. Did Minnesota have a GM?
I don't think they do. I know they've got like people in hockey ops, whatever, but I don't think they have a formal GM.
Like I know Denver has like their longtime assistant coach is considered their GM. He's not like named GM in title, but he's kind of in charge in recruiting and stuff. So
no
I don't
title,
know. It's
all the work.
Yeah, like quasi GM, but like it's
yeah.
And I like the idea that there's programs that are like, F this, we're gonna get these players and we're gonna develop them. Like Tim Washi wasn't this like groundbreaking recruit, right? No one was recruiting him, right? And Western went after him, and like, right, like, think Michigan State or Michigan would love to have a Tim Washi on their lineup, like, and he's right down in Clarkston. Like, it's not like it's this guy. He's playing for Little Caesars. He's playing like in Detroit. Like, it's so like I like the idea of these guys. Zeev Buium wasn't Zeev Buium 2 years ago. No one thought he'd be a first round draft pick 2 years ago. Like, obviously he developed into that and became that guy. But so it's fun to see these guys in these programs, even though I went to school in Michigan, right? And so I see the benefit of having the resources and the power behind it and the alumni and whatever. Like, name me a star-studded, first-round pick-studded college team that's won a national title.
Doesn't happen much.
How many playoff games did that Michigan team that had 5 first-round picks win in 2021, right? Like, and they had 4 in the first 5.
Well, I think the reason that rings true, like, you got to find the balance, of course, but like, if you are a first-round talent, you're probably only there for a year or two. Whereas the guys that aren't that first-round talent, like, they're playing into their junior, senior year. They're more developed. They've, just more mature. But it's going to be really interesting to see how all that plays out after that switch gets flipped this summer. Last thing we'll wrap on here, because due to timing of me not being able to speak, we definitely didn't give a proper memorial for this year's iteration of the Minnesota Golden Gophers. We will do that in weeks to come, but we have to acknowledge our boy Bob Motzko getting the World Juniors nod, which was weird because that had been rumored all along and like it made total sense. And like a week ago, everyone was saying that Ferschweiler had the inside track to the job. So I don't know what happened there, but I'm just happy for Bob that he got that call.
Yeah, and it's not his first time doing it, but I think it'll be a great experience, especially it being Minnesota. He's won goal before. The talent, obviously losing a lot of talent from the last couple of years, gold medal winning teams, but I'll be curious to see who's on his staff. Will Steve Miller trying to join him with that? A couple little, I don't know, maybe some younger staff guys is going to groom them for the job going forward, because I don't think this is going to be Bob Motzko's job for forever. I don't think he probably wants that. But yeah,
like when it's at home.
Yeah, no, it's a great thing for him in the program. Also, Snuggerud got his first NHL goal, which was great
against Cooley.
Against Cooley, it wasn't his vintage one-timer or shot, but in 20 years, when he's telling his kids about it, it's going to be a Ovi one-timer from the power play circle. So like,
Ovi one-timer against Patrick Waugh. It was great.
Yeah.
Oh, perfect. Well, with that, let's just get into the meat of all this. A lot to talk about with the Minnesota Wild on the other side. This interview is brought to you by our friends at Waggle Golf. Waggle Golf believes what you wear on the course should reflect your individuality, who you are, where you're from, your hobbies, interests, and passions. All the stuff that makes you, well, you. That's why every design is inspired by the desire to create a piece of apparel that strikes a chord when you see it. That makes you say, wow, that was made for me. Because in a lot of ways, it was. Ready to get your waggle on? Go to getyourwagalon.com, throw in promo code SP10 at checkout to take 10% off your entire order. All right, making, I think it's appearance number 6 now, Mike Russo. Appreciate you jumping on here with Joe and I. I want to just start here by congratulating you. I think it's very much in order with how you've paraded how much you do not want to go to Winnipeg this coming week. You get to go to Vegas. How's it feel?
Well, as Joe would attest, I'm nothing if not professional. And, it's become a shtick, my love for Vegas. So I felt like on this one, it would be okay that I wouldn't offend a lot of people and totally make it like I'm the most unprofessional writer in the world. But let's put it this way. If there's cheering in the press box, last night was in order.
Well, you were in the press box. You weren't on the press box.
I know, that's true. But it's, it's not even like to be totally serious. I mean, what a massive freaking goal! Like they might not make the playoffs. Like now, let's just say I know. I was talking to Joe on the phone today, and Blake Coleman and some Flames players said that they knew that they were eliminated when they went out for the third period, which I didn't realize that. So. There's kind of the butterfly effect. Who knows if they would have had the same outcome? I would think that they would have. But if Ek doesn't score that goal, the Wild are sitting here today on a day off, going to practice tomorrow, knowing full well that they might have had one of the most epic collapses in history. To go from first place in mid-December to not making the playoffs, because LA has nothing to play for tomorrow night, and that would be the worst. They'd be sick to their stomachs today. But what a massive goal by Eriksson. And then for it, just everything aligned perfectly. Like, one thing that has bothered me a lot down the stretch here is how the Wild really screwed the pooch in the last 3 weeks, right? This was supposed to be an unbelievably ceremonious ending to Marc-Andre Fleury's regular season career, where he was supposed to start that Anaheim game. We were supposed to see Zeev Buium make his NHL debut against Anaheim, but the Wild put themselves in a position where they couldn't start Fleury on what was it yesterday?
Saturday.
Tuesday. Couldn't start him on Tuesday. Couldn't start him on Saturday, and then Zeev, we obviously don't see make his NHL debut. And then they blow the lead in the third period, because the entire time I've been saying to Joe the last couple of weeks, like, if the Wilds are locked and loaded or they're up 3 or 4 goals going in the third, I've been hearing that they were thinking, let's put Fleury in for the third period or the last TV timer out or something. But if they don't blow that third period lead and then get the tying goal, they don't have this incredible ending. What a perfect way for Marc-Andre Fleury to go out, and for Gustafsson to just be so in tune. Not just classy, but just, again, he's always has his finger on the pulse. And for him to come to the bench and, as Joe wrote today, tag in essentially Marc-Andre Fleury, which is fitting because we're about to go to Vegas, where the WWE is dictating the start of the Wild series. It's just what a perfect ending. I mean, it was just so much drama. Like, biggest goal, in this season's history by far by Eriksson Ek. And then Boldy caps it off to give him this unbelievable finish to his regular season career. It was really an amazing, as frustrating as that game was for, I'm sure, the 19,000 fans there. I'm sure there's nobody that was in that building that left there completely unsatisfied.
Actually, Mike, my buddy who was at the game with me left with 2 minutes and 30 seconds left in the game.
Oh my goodness! How do you do that?
Because he's an idiot. He's gonna listen to this and he will raise his hand.
He made 82.
Like, we should do a feature on him in the Athletic of the idiocy. How do you leave? It's 2-1 game. You leave with 2:30. You have to beat the traffic by that much.
He would be a fascinating case study for an article sometime this summer when you guys have nothing else to do. But beyond that point, did we get like one of the greatest assists ever on that game-winning goal that no one will ever talk about because Marc-Andre Fleury overshadows all of it?
Yeah, I mean, exactly. You're talking about JoJo?
Yeah.
Yeah, it was awesome. Johansson had an unbelievable game. Johansson, other than that Calgary game and the Islanders game, really has had a great last month of his season. And it was awesome. But you know what? I mean, how about the plays made on the triangle? Like Matt Zuccarello, who's as tall as my hip. Like he goes in there and wins the puck battle, and in one touch gets it to Boldy in front, who immediately puts on
through traffic, and then the Boldy just pops it over to Eck. Like it was. I felt bad it was buried in my game story. I felt bad it was buried. Just like, by the way, this biggest goal in Wild season history, but
just really good. But Johansson's been really quality for them for a while, and there's a lot of guys playing really well, like Brock Faber. Absolutely delivering the last two games. Playing with Jonas Brodin, who's been awesome. They're going into this. They've had, as frustrated as this stretch has been for everybody. They've played some high stake games. Who knows if that carries into the playoffs, but it can't hurt. And I just think that they've got a lot of guys that have been, coming through here when they've most needed them. It hasn't been consistent. I know that everything looks different today if Eck doesn't score that goal. I'm well aware of that, but they've got a lot of guys playing really well right now.
Like, I think I'm curious too, because again, I was on paternity leave the first 2 months of the season, so I wasn't there when they were world beaters and leading the league in points. And it's been made several times that this is the first time they've been healthy and together since November 11th, right? Like, to you, Mike, how healthy does Eck and Kaprizov look? Like, is in this healthy lineup, can that rekindle what kind of the mojo that group had early in the year when it felt like they were never out of a game?
Yeah, I was just having a conversation with somebody that's high up with the Wild, and we were talking about Eriksson Ek, and I said, as much as it sucked the last 2 months, and I know that a lot of people in the organization was upset that he had to be out of the lineup because of this injury, it was a blessing in disguise because, as this person said, he has been dealing with so many little things because of how he plays, and it was a blessing that he could heal everything. And I think that's part of it. I think he is 100% healthy and is absolutely made up for lost time. Like, he looks rested. Kaprizov, I think, is still working out the rust a bit. He admitted that the other day. We had an interview with him in Vancouver the other day, Joe, that was as refreshing as we've ever heard him. I mean, he talked openly about how bad he was in Calgary and how you guys could see when I'm just not feeling good. And, he was feeling good that game in Vancouver, and I thought better last night, but still a little rusty. This is going to be a really valuable week for the Wild. They'll take today off. They'll get 2 or 3 days of practices in. I would think that they'll have, maybe an optional Thursday, a full practice Friday, and then another full practice Saturday in Vegas. I think a lot of guys are going to be able to ramp themselves up, and we're going to see Kaprizov. The one thing that I'll say is, as bad as Kaprizov was in that Dallas series because of rust, of missing the last month and a half essentially with the injury that he suffered in Winnipeg. The series before that he played in St. Louis, he was their best player. He absolutely was terrific. And so we've seen the best of Kirill Kaprizov and the worst of Kirill Kaprizov in the 2 playoff series that he's going to be in, that he's been in. And I just think that we're going to see a real quality player here come playoff time.
A guy you've seen a lot of big goals from, I think we were wondering, would Matt Boldy step up when Kirill went out, right? And I think there was long stretches of time in that second half of the season when there was some lengthy goal droughts for Matt Boldy, right? And I think we were wondering, okay, this is a time where you're another star on your team, right? A guy who Bill Guerin said could be a 50-50 guy needs to kind of come through. And there was some rough times there, but look at his numbers now. I think 10 game-winning goals this year, number 2 in the NHL. Look at all the moments he's had in the last 3 weeks. How would you put into perspective kind of where he's at now with his game? I know you're writing a story about that too coming up.
Yeah, 2 shootout game deciding goals in addition to those game-winning goals too. He has stepped up here big time in the last 2-3 weeks, and we're starting to see his maturity just kind of blossom. Marcus Foligno talked about that in that game after the Islanders game when they closed the room for a bit before we got in there. One of the biggest voices in there was Matt Boldy. And, when you're 24 years old, it takes a while to feel like one, to get comfortable, two, for you to feel like you are allowed to essentially step up in the locker room and call yourself out, call the team out, call individual players out. It takes a while. And, he's earned that right. He is one of their best players on the team, certainly one of their highest paid players on the team. And he's a big contributing factor to what's going on with this franchise. And then he does that. And the next night against Dallas, when they're playing one of the best games of the season, but Jake Ottinger is closing the door, who scores the huge goal in the third period? It's Matt Boldy. And he just has continued to be that guy right now. Sure, like the entire team, there have been times where he hasn't brought it. But what I love about his game right now, and especially that goal against Dallas, is that he's going to the guts of the ice. He's going to those places where Marco Rossi goes all the time, or Yul Eriksson goes all the time, and they're able to flourish in those situations. And we're seeing Boldy now get to the inside. And a big storyline coming into this postseason will be, can he continue going into the playoffs? I mean, this is somebody in his first two playoffs. I think he has only one goal. And Bill Guerin has bemoaned the fact that we haven't seen him get to that new type of player that you have to be to score in the postseason. And I think we've seen that from the Four Nations on here, that he's getting to the harder areas of the ice to score, that he's not just always perimeter and things like that. So we'll see, where he plays on the power play. I think you and I both don't love him at the point on the power play, Joe. I think he'll start there, obviously, in the playoffs if they continue with the five forward power play. But then the question is, if they fall down in the series, when do they pull Zeev Buium out of the bullpen? At some point, we're going to see him debut. I think so.
I think so too.
I can't remember who it was. I got to look back on it, but I don't remember if it was Kalen Addison. Somebody for the Wild debuted in that Vegas series because Carson Soucy tore up his shoulder or broke his ribs or something. It was horribly painful injury, and somebody came out. Was it Addison?
I think that was before Addison.
Yeah, I'm trying to think. Yeah. Somebody came out in that Vegas series. So I think that we're going to probably see Zeev Buium as well, get a look at some point.
Yeah, and so not starting in game one, what do you think, like the lineup from that final game against the Ducks, is that what we should expect going into game one, or do you think there's going to be changes forward or defense?
100%. I think it's the lineup. I think it's the lines and it's the lineup. I think Justin Brazo's played himself into the lineup. I know that bothers some Wild fans that really have liked Vinny Hinostroza's game. The problem with Hinostroza, he does not take care of the puck well. He just has been too erratic. And when you're going to play a fourth line role like he's going to have to play, they're just not going to accept that. But, again, if you want a momentum shift, you want to add some speed, some offense, having Vinny Hinostroza come out of the bullpen in the playoffs won't be a bad thing at all. But he's performed well. But I think that this is the lineup going into the playoffs. Like John Merrill and Zach Bogosian are not coming out to start the playoffs. I'm not saying that they're going to be in there every single game. Again, you're going to need momentum shifts when you're down in a series. You're going to need to make some changes to the lineup. And that's why, I don't think it's just going to be a cakewalk with a Wild sweep Vegas. Yeah. So I think that, they're going to be down at some point where they're going to need some changes. There's going to be injuries and things like that. So I think that we'll see Zeev. I think that we'll probably see Vinny at some point. But most likely that we've seen the sneak peeks here. That was a must-win game the other night. The lineup that they played in game 82 is clearly what they're going to be thinking for game one.
That's fair. I just have two players specifically that I'm curious your thoughts on them. One, Middleton. Do you like him sticking with Spurgeon, or do you think that him and Faber get reunited at some point here?
My guess is that because Middleton and Spurgeon have had such success before, especially a couple years ago leading into that St. Louis series, I think that they're going to stay together because Brodin and Faber have been so freaking good the last 2 or 3 games, and especially probably since Middleton left the lineup. I'm glad Middleton got a chance to play yesterday. Clearly he was hurt badly and probably wasn't 100% yesterday, but at least he gets a game before game one of the playoffs. He can continue to rest, continue to practice, assuming that he didn't re-aggravate anything yesterday. So my guess is those are the deep pairs going into the playoffs.
Okay. And then the other one is, how do you feel about where Marco Rossi's currently slotted in the lineup?
I mean, it's going to have to be where he is because Gaudreau, Johansson, and Zuccarello have been so good together for so long. I think it's going to have to continue to be that way. Obviously, we know Eriksson is going to continue to play with Boldy and Kaprizov to start the playoffs. So Rossi's going to have to be with Nyquist and Foligno. I want to see more from Gus Nyquist. That is one that would be an easy change at some point, is to throw Hinestroza into the lineup and put him in Nyquist's spot. Remember, they got Nyquist, though, for the playoffs, so I don't know if that's going to happen, but he's got to be better. But the other night in Vancouver, when the going got tough and they had to shorten the bench because of Trenyan's misdoings, the two guys that were stapled in the bench, other than the one power play late in the game, was Rossi and Nyquist. This is going to be a big playoff for Marco Rossi. Joe and I have written over and over again, dating back to last summer, where they were throwing out feelers and seeing if there were any baits out there for Marco Rossi. Him and I, Joe and I, completely believe that Marco Rossi will be floated out there again this offseason. But if he has an amazing playoff and puts the Wild in a position where they're not going to want to move him, I think that would only behoove him. But if he has a real tough go this postseason, I think it lends further credence to what Joe and I have been reporting.
Speaking of guys floated out there, where would the Wild be right now if someone had picked up the phone and called Bill Guerin last summer and said, "Hey, Philip Gustafsson, can I give you this for him?" Where would the Wild be right now if there was a move last summer?
Or answered the phone. It was the Wild were motivated to move him and had some potential deals out there, and it didn't happen. And with the year that Jesper Wallstedt's had, absolutely. I mean, again, who knows what would have happened if he was the number one guy. But for a guy that has really struggled at the AHL level and has had 4 injuries this season, I think 4, Joe, or at least 3 in the one mental.
He had 3, and then he had
the reset earlier in the year when the Wild went to Charlotte. The baby Wild went to Charlotte. They'd be in big time trouble. Fleury would have gotten a lot more action than he did. Let's put it that way. Yeah. Or they would have had to maybe make a move for a goalie. So things happen for a reason. Things have changed. You and I were discussing yesterday, Joe, on whether or not, one of the calls that the Wild make this offseason, we're all talking Kaprizov, but, maybe you got to try to see if you can work out something with Gustafsson. I don't think he's going to relinquish the net anytime soon. He's certainly young enough and entering the peak of his career that I don't think it'd be a risk at all to re-sign him. Goalies are making a lot of money now. So, and Kurt Overhart obviously knows that market. But I think that at least you consider that this offseason, because if, he has another big year next year and Wallstedt does not, all of a sudden the leverage completely goes to Gustafsson heading into the trade deadline.
And they don't go anywhere without Gustafsson in this playoffs, right? If Gustafsson, he could be a game changer for these first round series against Eichel and the Vegas Golden Knights. So I think, he's the number one, not 2 years ago where it was Gustafsson had 52 saves in an overtime victory and they went to Fleury in game 2. This is Gustafsson's net in the playoff series against Vegas, right? So he's not handing it over to Fleury in third period of game 1, so it's not going to happen that way. But it has been impressive to see what he's done this year, and not just, physically be in shape going into the season, but mentally handling all the grind. I mean, you've talked to him too, Mike, about, giving up goals and not letting it bother him or having a bad outing and bouncing back from it. I think that's what makes a really good number one goalie.
Yes, totally agree with you. And, I'm not saying that we're not going to see Fleury again, but it could be mop-up duty in a game that gets away. It could be an injury. Even if they were down 3-0 or something, I just don't see, Gus is clearly their guy. There's a reason why, Fleury was essentially stopped being used in the second half. I don't think it was really warranted, but I think that they felt like if they had a chance to make the playoffs, they were going to have to ride Gus. And for that being the case, we know that Gus is the number one from start to finish in the postseason, as long as he's upright.
Yeah, fair. People have already jumped on the low-hanging fruit here, Mike. 3-0 this season, Vegas against the Wild. So clearly we've got no chance. There's a lot more that goes into that. Initial impressions that you guys have, just, I know you'll go way deeper in some of your columns and some of your colleagues at The Athletic, but what do you look at in this matchup? What stands out?
Well, I just think this is as deep a team as they possibly could face. I mean, they are, you have Jack Eichel, wh's a Hart Trophy candidate. They're one of the best blue lines in the NHL. They're getting great goaltending from Adin Hill. Guys like Vorfiev, right? Has just been unbelievable this year with 34, 35 goals. They just up and down their lineup. They're as deep as you could be. Stone's a proven playoff performer. Petro is going to be a physical thorn in the Wild side. Shea Theodore is as good an offensive defenseman as there is. William Karlsson is a proven guy that's one of the great penalty killers in the game. Jack Eichel is one of the great two-way forwards in the game. He'll be on my Selke ballot, and Hart ballot probably. So it's going to be tough. They are a little banged up, right? We haven't seen, Hurdle, obviously, who I didn't even mention, who's a true stud. Hurdle missed a lot of time down the stretch with the shoulder. Eichel hasn't played the last 4 or 5 games of the year. They're trying to rest him up. Theodore just got back to the lineup from his Four Nations wrist injury. So they're also got some guys, but all those guys are going to be playing in the playoffs. So it's going to be a tough matchup. There's no doubt about it. And the Wild have also lost 9 of their last 11 against them. Now the ones this year, a little weird. Not that you can't win on the second of back-to-backs, but all second of back-to-backs with tough travel, like the last one they played where they're in Dallas and come back to play the next day.
When Kaprizov and Eck are out for
exactly. So I don't know how much credence, how much stock I take into this year's games, but for a team like the Wild were the last team in the NHL to lose to Vegas when they were an expansion team. Like Vegas was the Wild patsy, and this is a Vegas team that was good right out of the hop, but they could never beat Minnesota. But it turned belly up for the Wild big time here the last couple of years, 3 years. But you know what? I look back at that playoff series in 2021 that the Wild forced a 7th game. I think they 100% win that series if they're healthy. They were just ravaged. I mean, Eck was playing on a sprained MCL. Kaprizov was banged up. I mentioned Susie got hurt. Jonas Brodin got hurt 5 minutes into Game 7. Their most irreplaceable defenseman at that point in that series, and you lose him immediately in that Game 7. And that was another series. That's 4 straight series the Wild have lost in the first round where they actually had a lead in the series. And that was the first one. They had a lead in the Vegas series, a lead in the St. Louis series, a lead in the Dallas series, and the series before that as well. So, that's something that, don't jump for joy yet if the Wild jump out to a 1-0 lead in Game 1, that's for sure.
Well, and that's like my question too, is like, I know it's all intangible and kind of up in the air, I guess, but, they've had leads in previous series before. Like, does kind of the adversity or the experience or the scar tissue they gained this year of what they've been through maybe help them be a little stronger mentally, physically, just like anything in that essence of if they get in that situation again against Vegas that might be able to help them out? Like, is it all kind of, there's something to that, I think. I wonder if, like, not that they're going to go win the cup, but I'm saying I wonder if in a series like this, all of a sudden they have this experience from this year where they found a way that they can maybe have a little more, like they said, choose their heart this season, that they've been able to handle it better.
Yeah. Well, I definitely think so. I know that a lot of people think that resiliency, adversity, or just baloney, cliched words in pro sports, but I do think there is something to it. Like Faber after the game in Vancouver the other night, I asked him, like, talk about a game where they had everything against them. It's a must-win game. Okay, they're down 2-0 in the third. They are without Middleton and Spurgeon. They're playing a guy named Cam Crotty that everybody had to Google, including the coach. Then they lose Declan Chisholm for the entire second period. Then Faber scores, and they have the most bogus quick whistle in history that Faber would have scored the tying goal on the same shift. Yeah. And yet they overcame all that and won. And Faber said afterwards, like, adversity shapes a team. And what team in the league on the ice, I'm not talking about like what Columbus has had to deal with this year and all that stuff, but what team in the league on the ice this year has had to deal with as much adversity as this team? Just over and over again, injury after injury after injury. Most man games in the league, if you take out Gabriel Landeskog, who, just gave them 82 right at the beginning. This is somebody that hadn't played in 3 years. So I kind of, discount Colorado. Not that Colorado didn't deal with adversity this year, but I just think that when you're a team that's already 15.7 under the cap, and you're without Kaprizov and Eriksson for as long as they were, Kaprizov missed exactly half the season. Eriksson missed 43% of the season. Brodin missed 32 games. Spurgeon missed the huge time with the injury that came on the dirty play against Nashville. Middleton had the broken wrist and dealt with what he was just dealing with right now. Jacob Lauko was out over and over and over again. It's just been nonstop. And yet, look at their final tallies, right? I mean, Goudreau, Faber, Boldy, and Rossi, the only three guys that played 2 games, I think. Johansson didn't miss a lot, but there've been just a lot of guys out of the lineup. And I just think that it does help you. Now, does that help you in a 7-game series against Vegas? Who knows? But I think let's put it this way. If they're down immediately in a game or things like that, the one thing that we know is that this team can rally. We've seen it over and over again this year. They've come back from 2 goals down myriad times, multiple times. So, I think that, do I think they're going to win a playoff series? I don't know. I mean, we've seen so many clunkers, them going to Long Island and going to Calgary, even last night, not being able to take care of business against an Anaheim team that they should easily beat. Now they're going up against one of the formidable contenders in the West. I think it's going to be hard for them, but I definitely think all this helps.
Final question brought to you, as always, by our good friends at Waggle Golf. First, make sure you head over to getyourwaggleon.com. Throw in promo code SP10 to take 10% off your entire order. I guess it's a little bit of a double up, but predictions, roundtable, all 3 of us, the Wild quarterfinal series and your Stanley Cup final prediction.
Oh man, Cup final is so hard right now.
Yeah.
I'm gonna go Vegas in 6th, and for the Cup final right now, you give your Vegas selection there, Joe, and I'll come up with a Cup final.
I'll go Vegas in the 7 actually, because I know Mike wants a couple of trips to Vegas, maybe 3 trips to Vegas, so we'll do Vegas in 7. And I think it is a Tampa Bay and Dallas final. And I think that the Dallas Stars find a way to finally get over the hump.
Yeah, I wish I went first because I would have gotten something similar. All right, now I can't go Tampa Bay. We're going to go Toronto. How about that?
Oh,
Toronto. But we're going to have them lose just to keep the devastation
of
alive.
course.
We're going to go Toronto, and we're going to go Vegas.
Okay. I'm with Joe. I think Vegas in 7 for the series. And I don't know, maybe you guys will think I'm out to lunch, but I think in a weird twist of Rantanen Bowls, we're going to get Carolina over Colorado.
That would be pretty cool. That would be a weird twist. And Landeskog being back is going to really be interesting.
They're really, Colorado's really good. That series with them and Dallas is going to be just a
insane.
Bloodbath. Like,
a lot of good series to start.
Yeah.
I just like their depth down the middle that they added at the deadline. I think it's a completely different team.
Yeah.
And I like Carolina's path, if I'm being honest.
How amazing would it be if Toronto wins the Stanley Cup final, though? That'd be, oh my God.
Losing game 7?
Oh, it'd be crazy. So.
We'll see. But well, thanks, Mike. Appreciate it. We will see you here very shortly. But thanks again for joining us. And we'll see you soon.
Yep. See you, bud.
Final segment. Every week we have producer Isha stepping in here, riding shotgun with me for Keyboard Warriors, our NHL and anything hot takes segment, brought to you by our great friends at Barrel Theory Beer Company. And we got it. We got at least 2 more games at XL Energy Center. And the first move that everyone should be making is running for Section 105 to get the Crowler of the Day. Or if that's just too much of a commitment for you, I respect it. Check out sections 112, 217, club level 36 to get their flagship IPA Raindrops on tap. And make sure if you're pre-gaming, post-gaming, or you just need somewhere to watch because you don't want to pay for playoff tickets, get to the Barrel Theory tap room. No questions asked. We will probably see you there if you do. Isha, we got 3 hot takes here. The 2 that I've pulled from outside sources, 1 of my own that I think the one of mine you are going to very much like. But we
might have the same one, so I'm excited.
If you do, that would be crazy because Or you're looking at the document. Maybe. First one from one of our favorites, Jeff Merrick. He argues that the Pittsburgh Penguins should have been hit with salary cap circumvention because Sidney Crosby lived with the team owner, Mario Lemieux. And like arguments were made like, oh, like a lot of players live with like other teammates. Yes. That teammate is not also the owner of the team.
Is there a clause though for player owner? Is there some clause somewhere that says that like under that unique circumstance that's okay? Or is there a clause that doesn't talk about it at all? Because if there's not a law saying you can't do it, you know,
I just don't know, but I'm sure that there's things written against it. Like otherwise, why wouldn't more teams be like, hey, we've got like this plush setup. We'll like throw you here for the first year, whatever. I don't know, but
maybe some do anyways. They just own the property and don't live there. And they're like, oh, hey, yeah, here's an apartment. We'll put you up.
That'd be so easy to pick up on. Like, you know who owns it. Like, if
maybe
they
it's just
cared
the
and wanted
factor.
to enforce it.
It's just like, I am not the great one, the greatest one. And everything, you know, everything I say flies.
Well, I think it's also just one of those things where they're like, this is like beyond a one-off, not worth it. Like leave it alone.
That too.
Now, if Mario starts like setting up a frat house and everyone on the team goes and lives there, like, yeah, maybe we got to figure this out. Because it'd be interesting to see like owners pony up more money for like amenities like that to lure free agents, especially now, in the like smaller markets.
Now, like, fuck, I'm so busy today with work, and now I'm going to be procrastinating because now I want to look up in like the European teams and see like what goes on there because I'm sure that shit happens. Like,
you mean Russian?
Well, Russian. I was also thinking like, you know, I know, obviously Yager's team's not the most affluent club right now, but like I'm sure if he had money, bro, he'd be buying like a few of the boys a house. I'm sure Mogilny's team in that he's involved with in Russia, I'm sure he's taking care of the boys as well. I'm not sure if he has ownership stake or he's just a coach at this point, but one of the guys who I knew in the NHL was always very, very generous to his teammates.
Yeah, that's for sure.
iPads in the AHL, baby.
All right, so Penguins cap circumvention needs to be fixed. Watch, they're going to listen to this and like go back and like, yeah, you guys actually have to forfeit a first round pick, even though Chicago Blackhawks still barely got a slap on the wrist for all of that. We'll move on.
Both our teams outside of Minnesota, like Canucks and Pittsburgh, like what's sad seasons like.
No, disagree. I'm really, really hoping that the Penguins lose and one or two teams manage to win because right now they're falling anywhere between 7 and 9, which is like the highest they've picked in so long. And that puts me like right on the fringe of like a couple of the players that Z's got me really excited about in the upcoming draft, which when's the last time that Z's had a pick? They're going to be like 4 or 5 Boston or 5 or 6 maybe. So there's going to be a lot to talk about, even though Minnesota Wild will not be part of that conversation. Next hot take. This comes from Barstool Chief. I despise the Blackhawks and pretty much everything about them. He's like usually fairly objective. And like, I actually think he knows a good amount of what he's talking about, but that's irrelevant on this one because he brings up quote tweeting someone talking about like how, someone said that the Blues aren't a real team, whatever. That person, Adam Roper, says, what a brain dead comment. Hottest team in the league since Four Nations. And we have the power of Jobu behind us. Chief quotes it, says, if you're not terrified of the Blues having Jobu on their side, then you don't know anything about anything. They're a vibes org. This is like Gloria or that fucking rat YP had, which is a reference to young page views of Barstool's chinchilla that he literally snuck into a game, which is insane on the surface of it. But not only does Jobu like thrust them, they fall into a very interesting matchup here. Like St. Louis goes to Winnipeg, which won the President's Trophy, curse. Winnipeg just historically not a team that performs in the first round. Not sure what Ehlers' health status is. Not sure if they brought Hellebuck into the ground. Like the Blues are playing well. They are vibing. Do we think that they're going to beat the Jets?
I think that on vibes, like I think they have definitely a good chance, and it's because of this momentum, right? Like if they were just a little bit better than the Wild this season and like deserved to be in the playoffs, but like we weren't talking about any of the X factors. We weren't talking about the vibes. We weren't talking about their ascent. Just like, wait, the last time the Blues, mind you, with a different core, but the last time the Blues won the cup, it was because they were vibing out and fucking went
Bad
on that
start,
crazy
coaching change, a couple tweaks, and they're off. And they almost traded Braden Shen at the deadline. Like, and now this is a team that like I don't think anyone wants to play.
And
them.
they got a free top player in Jimmy Snuggerud who joined them as well.
It's a weird year too because like the Wild are not just similar. Like the vibe's not necessarily the same, but like they're getting healthy now. Like this isn't a team that you want to face as a wild card. What everyone's going to cover that like ad nauseum the next couple of days, so we don't have to go much further into that. But the Blues, I feel, just need to be addressed because they're a team that I'm curious once all the predictions start coming out if they're going to be like the darling that everyone's picking as the upset team, or
if they're like,
are they just going to get completely like disrespected? I lean towards I think there's going to be a lot of people who think they're like, ooh, I'm so smart, I'm picking the Blues, and it's like, oh shit, everyone picked the Blues.
Yeah, I mean, I think like again, if Ehlers can play like even to 80% of his capabilities, I think that they're obviously the better team.
They are.
It's just like, do we see the shaky Hellebuck? Are they healthy enough? And when does this momentum kind of slow down a bit for the Blues? Because now it's a new season. It's the playoffs. It's different.
But they didn't lose it going in. Like that carries in my
That's
opinion.
true. But I will say on just a counter argument, we've seen vibes teams crash and burn in the playoffs as well. Remember the Ottawa Senators? Do you remember the Hamburglar? That was one of the craziest like rises and playoff entries from a mid-season like middling, and they crashed and burned in the playoffs too and got it, kind of exposed and be like, oh yeah, like in a 7-game series, same team that can make adjustments just as quick as we can. Like, it doesn't always work out. But
am I oversimplifying it to say that it comes down to the goalies? Like, if Binnington can keep doing what he's doing, and or Hellebuck has his like playoff, slump, like that's what decides it. But if Hellebuck's Hellebuck, they win.
God, I can't believe I'm rooting for
Binnington goes back into being the pumpkin, like they lose. So
I can't believe I'm rooting for Binnington just because like I need him to keep playing well for Olympics. Because he's Canada's only hope.
We'll see. It'll be interesting. All right, last one then. Did you look at the outline and see what the next topic is?
No, I don't have
that. Then I want to hear what you think it is because you seem so confident.
Well, I thought, just because you said that I would love it, my mind went right to the Washington Capitals.
Oh, no, but go ahead.
Okay. So my thing is, and again, correct me if I'm wrong. I tried to bring it up, but my keyboard is so fucking loud that is this like does Ovechkin have one more year left on his contract, or did he? Right. Okay, because I read somewhere that he's like, I'm gonna come back for 1 year, like I'm not gonna retire, and then I'm gonna go play in Russia for 1 year. But if this is his last year on the contract, and he was hinting at signing to like a 1 year to come back for like a farewell tour, might change my hot take here. But anyways. Regardless of the contract,
next year is his last year.
Oh, okay. So this might not work out, but this is what I was thinking was the Capitals go on another run, make some of the fan base sweat a little bit as they do in the playoffs as well. A couple nail biting 7-game series. Capitals win the cup. Ovechkin gets his second cup. Goodbye NHL. Don't need a farewell tour and just fucks off this year and goes back to Dynamo and does his farewell tour and partying in Moscow.
I mean, it's a reasonable take.
I guess the hot part of it now would be that, like, he just says, sorry, Ted, like, grant me this, I'm out. Like, I'm not coming back for another year.
Well, I mean, he can retire. He doesn't have to play it out.
Yeah, well, then, but doesn't it get, like, murky if you go and play pro somewhere else if you retire from the NHL and so your contract gets terminated, right? Isn't there some sort of, like, this isn't the NFL. You can't just be like, contract terminated, gone, right? But anyways.
But I don't, first off, I don't think the Capitals are going to stop it because they owe him everything. But I also think, yes, if they win the cup, totally conceivable. Otherwise, like, he needs to hit 900. Like he's far away. He needs it.
And the farewell tour will be legendary, and Ted Leon's is going to make so much more money. That like next season's going to be insane, dude. Well, every market that Ovechkin comes to, it's going to be like, not quite Messi fucking level in MLS, but in the small hockey world, it'll be like that. It'll be like that, right?
Yeah, it's not unreasonable. Yeah. No, my take that you're gonna like even more. The Wild did come to terms with XL Energy Center for continued like major sponsorship. Naming rights are still up for grabs. They will not be taking it. What do you think I want the arena to be called?
Elon Musk's X?
No.
The X, baby.
What happens during TV timeouts?
A lot, dude. I'm from Canada, so my mind goes to the Timbits hockey. Okay.
No, the shovels.
Oh, okay.
What's the branding?
Oh, Quick Trip, please.
I need the Quick Trip Hippodrome.
Oh, what?
We're gonna call it the Trippodrome, and they need to have Quick Trip food for sale in the arena. Can I get an amen?
A fucking men, dude.
I would lose my absolute mind, and I mean. If
I would spend so much money at that Quick Trip.
if Hippodrome is like too unhinged for them, like there's plenty of other options, but like there's two rinks. Two of the oldest rinks are Garden because that's like loosely defines like an open like space, whatever. Like it could be Quick Trip Hippodrome, it could be Quick Trip Coliseum, Quick Trip Stadium, or if we want to get like weird, you could do like Quick Trip Pond, Quick Trip Lake, Quick Trip ODR indoors.
The pond would be awesome, actually. Pond.
But yeah, Quick Trip Pond, I would be all for that. It's actually funny because my rink growing up, before they built the nice new one that I think you saw, was called the Pond. Because the guy's last name was Pond, but like still that's played so perfect. Pond Arena. Shout out Mound West Tonka.
That is
Quick Trip Hippodrome or Quick Trip Coliseum. I think just works for me so well.
And they
Step up, Quick Trip. Prove that you are, even though you're based in Wisconsin, you're a Minnesota company.
Oh yeah. You know what made me sick yesterday is on in local broadcast again. The commercials, all the Quick Trip commercials were with the freaking Q. Those fake ass, bum ass Q Quick Trips. No. This ain't no QMJHL. This is Quick Trip with a K, baby. Let's go.
Yeah, saw several quick stars on the way down to St. Louis, but set the point. Again, appreciate our great friends Barrel Theory for bringing you this segment every week. Check them out pre-game, post-game, during the game, tap room or XL Energy Center, and let's go Wild. Sunday is going to be big. All right, that does it for this week, everybody. Important to note, and we'll be sure to keep you all informed going forward, but through the playoffs, probably not going to be adhering to our typical weekly Wednesday drop. Going to have to move and shake a little bit with the Wild schedule throughout the playoffs. So stay tuned. We will keep you updated on when those episodes will be coming. But otherwise, Joe, anything in particular besides obviously like there's going to be matchup preview. There's going to be a lot from you, Mike, and from a lot of your colleagues, I'm sure. Anything in particular that people should be looking out for on The Athletic?
Yeah, like we'll have all of our series previews from Dom and Shayna, which will be great. Russo and I will have stories in the next 4 days, each of us taking turns. Like I think he's writing on Matt Boldy, which will come out when this podcast comes out. So we'll do a big picture story on the franchise and where they are in terms of maybe is this year they go up past the first round. We'll do some more matchup stuff with Vegas and our Vegas writer Jesse Granger, and more stuff planned throughout the series. But at least to get us started, to see, because every time a series starts, all of a sudden it takes you different directions where that'll tell you what stories need to go. For sure. Well, no, everyone be sure to tune in, check that out. Otherwise, we'll catch you all next week. Go Wild. It's I'm still like very thrown off from everything that happened in the game last night, Joe, but it's exciting to say the least. I guess end on just this quick one. How important do you think it is that they did win in that fashion versus maybe they lose, they're sweating it out like we talked about with Mike, fans are sweating it out, but
Calgary loses and we get in. Like, the vibes are completely different now going into game one because of how the team ended that game, right?
Oh yeah, I mean, like, there's no, like, you don't get extra points for vibes, but I think the fact that they were able to find a way to win kind of built even more, like, kind of scar tissue in the season, and the more the storylines. So if they have back-to-back wins now, to come from behind and win, like Vancouver and this one, and some guys are making key plays, key moments. Fleury had his moment, such emotions after that, and now they get some rest, and they're not practicing Thursday wondering if they're in the playoffs. They're going to be practicing with opponent in mind and what they have an idea what they're going to focus on. So I think it won't guarantee them a victory, but they're in a lot better position than guys wondering if they blew it for their team, right? Guys feel like we owning it for 48 hours, worrying and sweating it out to see what happens to me, what happens to this team after this, and worrying about what happens in the offseason versus let's go to Vegas and see what happens.
Absolutely. Well, everyone, we'll see you for all the chaos on Sunday. Until then, you stay classy, stay to hockey.